What's up, everybody? I'm Alec, and this is another episode of Ode to Black Love podcast. Before we get started today, make sure you're liking, following, and subscribing to us on all social media platforms. That's it, Ode to Black Love on Instagram and TikTok, then Ode to Black Love podcast on Facebook and YouTube. Also, if you have not gotten your merch, head over to odetobblacklove.com to place your order today. We have some shirts available. We have our One Story at a Time shirt as well as our Retro Love shirt. So if you have not gotten yours, head over to the website today. Also, before I forget, we do have an upcoming event at Kindred Spirits, and that will be on May 21st. From 1 to 5. So it's going to be a day party experience. If you've been to the last two, you know how we come and it's going to be lit. We have such a good time celebrating just Ode to Black Love podcast as well as everything else that's going on in the city. So make sure you pull up on us. And I think that's it, y'all. I tried to write it all down because I was going to forget because Jeremy typically helps me with that. But I think I covered everything. And if I didn't, Jeremy will put it in the description box. But as y'all can see, today looks a little bit different. I'm loving the new content that we're bringing, y'all. We're diversifying and it's great. But this one is actually a Mother's Day episode. So Mother's Day will be Sunday. So this is going to be released on Tuesday and Mother's Day will be the following Sunday. And so we just wanted to have a Mother's Day episode to talk about the plight of Black women and Black mothers and how beautifully different it can be, right? So I have two special guests with me today to tackle this topic, and it's going to be such a good time. Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves.
Hello, everyone. I am Kenyelle Williams. I am 37 years old, and I have two of my biological children. One girl, she's 17, and then I have a boy. He is 7. And then I'm blessed to have 3 bonus children. Our boy is 11.
Oh.
Middle girl, she is 14. And then we have a soon-to-be 16-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Michelle Macon. I'm 40 years old. I have 2 children. My son is 7 and my daughter is 15, almost 16. So
Awesome. Okay, so can y'all let us know, how old were you when you became a mom and what was that experience like?
So when I first became a mom, it was at the age of 19.
Okay.
And it is when I found out that I was pregnant with Cheyenne, the oldest, the 17-year-old. And I took on the role of being mom, actually, when it was brought to me through a professor of mine at Langston when I shared with him that I was pregnant. And he said, "Welcome to motherhood."
Okay.
Welcome parenthood. He didn't say motherhood. He said, "Welcome to parenting." And then he congratulated me on being a mother. At that time, it wasn't in my mind that until I actually had a baby in hand that I was a mom. But he put that in my mind and in my heart early on. Soon when I found out I was pregnant, that, okay, I'm going to be a mom.
Yeah, and how did you feel when you found out?
Definitely scared and nervous. I was still very young. She was not planned at that age.
Yeah.
But I was scared. I was nervous. And then even with that pregnancy at the time did come some disappointment. So in myself and just not ready. I wasn't ready.
Absolutely. What did your family feel when they found out and when you told them?
Lots of disappointment. Lots of disappointment because it was a unique time for my family. It was myself, my younger sister, who was 15 at the time, who was also pregnant. And then we also had a younger cousin who was younger than both of us, who was also pregnant as well. We were all pregnant with our first child at the same time, 14, 15, and 19. So happiness was not a thing at that time, and lots of heartache and heartbreak, especially with our aunts and my grandmother and my mom. And it wasn't just one. Like I said, it was all 3 of us, that was that hit hard.
Yeah, I'm sure. What about you, Michelle?
I was 24 when I became a mom. A little later in the game, but it still was not expected. I was actually living in Chicago at the time, living my best life. And so it was not planned, but, my plan is not God's plan. So my daughter's name is Messiah, and I always tell her, I'm like, you saved my life because I was wilding. And so she really brought me back center, when you find out that you're going to be a mother, you definitely mature. You know, a lot of things change, and it's not just about you. So it was a scary thing for me. I mean, I wasn't really scared to be a mother. My brother has 6 children, and so I was always, you know, really involved in his children's lives. But it was just, I was more concerned about disappointing my dad because I'm a daddy's girl. And so I knew my mom probably wasn't going to be, you know, she was actually excited, you know, when I told her. But I was just like, oh, no, it's nothing to be excited about. I was devastated, but it was such a blessing. I'm such a blessed mom. So.
Awesome. And it's what I love about this so much is that you were 19, you said you were 24, I was 26, and I didn't plan to be pregnant. I was married, I was 26, but I still felt some disappointment.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes to show no matter where you are in life, if you're not ready or if it's not what you want, you may experience some difficult emotions within yourself. Right. So I love that we all kind of share the same experience, even though we were in different stages of our life. Right. Like I said, married, 26 years old, had a decent job, but I'm just like, this ain't what I want right now.
Right, exactly.
So I was disappointed. And it just wasn't the happiest time initially when I found out. So I love that. That's really cool. So now I think you mentioned you have 2 kids and you also have 2 kids. I just have one. But how is it raising children, especially in 2022? Especially, you know, young Black men and Black women.
I would say raising kids in the 21st century, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. And so we make it a very intentional point to also make it fun.
I love that.
To have fun with our families because this is hard. Our children are dealing with things that we didn't have to deal with. When we were being raised and growing up, we didn't have the social media spotlight. We didn't have, you know, even the meanness is different.
Yeah,
you know, and kids have always been mean, but they're a different kind of mean now. So, you know, it's not easy. I will say that. And so we intentionally make it fun for our children. All of them together, when they're together and when they're not, because we are, you know, blending 2 different households with 5 children.
Right.
And not even consistently, you know, we have to make time for fun. We have to make time, you know, to blend, to make the blend work. So that's just kind of where we are now. We recognize and we accept that it's hard. There's nothing easy about it. And it's a ripple effect. Everything you do with your children, you know, there's a ripple effect to it. So just lots of forward thinking as well. Right, it's not just, you know, do what I say, you know, or the you know, how we were raised, you know, do as I say, not as I do, this and the other. There's a lot more talking that goes on these days that we have to do for our children to be well.
Absolutely.
Right.
What about you?
Totally. Messiah and Titan are 8.5 years apart. And so essentially I have 2 firstborn children. Like they think they are the only child. Like Messiah acts like he doesn't exist and he's like, why is she here? So it's really hard, you know, especially just trying to bring them together because I try to really reiterate, you know, you guys are siblings and when I'm gone, y'all are all you have. And so me and my brother, we were only 4 years apart, so we were really close. But I find myself really making it intentional to make sure that they really spend time together and really know each other. And so that's my biggest adversity with them being so far apart.
Yeah. So in regards to raising young Black women and Black men, how do y'all, like, what are some challenges that present itself? I know for me, I had Noah in December of 2019, and then come 2020, the George Floyd situation happened. Yeah. And so watching that, and then looking at my precious brown boy, that was tough. Yeah. And so having older kids, teenagers, that you have to parent through that, like, what do you do? What do you say? And then what are some other things that come up that we maybe deal with that other societies or cultures don't have to?
I would say the biggest change that I made was giving them a voice, especially when all of, like you said, the George, you know, Floyd situation and so many others. I mean, starting Trayvon Martin and before him and after him. That's the biggest shift that I made as a parent was just giving them a voice. Like, what are you feeling? You know, how and why? And Meshell, you hit it on the head when you said it's like you have 2 firstborns, and so that piece right there, that was different for me, because in my mind, I'm like, y'all are just y'all brother and sister, get along, this and the other. But it really did point out the complete and total differences between the two, and how my conversations have to be because of the age gap and because of the gender, boy, girl, and so forth. So I had to listen. That I had to give them a voice and allow them to talk and speak, and not, be any kind of judgmental towards them, towards my children, and to sometimes, put the mom hat to the side a little bit and say, and let them know, because I'm going to speak as a mom all the time, it's always going to be there.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that, in my conversation, that I always have to be mama mode. Sometimes it's okay for me to say, let's talk as friends, but understand that if we get a little bit too friendly, that mama hat goes right back, right back on, because we're not going to cross that line, too much. But giving them a voice, allowing them to talk to me about how they felt about what they were hearing, what they were seeing on the news, and what teachers were saying, what friends were saying. And then just letting those be teachable moments for both of them. My daughter, Cheyenne, she never has been an avid reader, I will say. But when she started hearing more and more about, what was going on and watching it on social media, she started picking up books. I remember the first book that she has read without being told to read was The Hate You Give, And I mean, I cried when she told me, Mama, I'm going to go check out this book and I'm going to read it. I mean, she read it, she wrote about it, she talked to me about it, and then watched the movie. When really, in reality, her way is, I'm going to watch the movie and I'm not going to do nothing else, So, just allowing them to feel, and then to express their feelings with a safe place, in a safe place.
Right.
Yeah. I think a big thing for me as a parent in this century was definitely understanding that I had to advocate for my children, and Black history had to be a part of our household, because it's not a part of their outside, environment. And at that time, when all that was really coming to a head, both of my children were in private schools where they were the only brown-skinned children in the schools. And so I really had to take a step back and really, check on their mental well-being, and how do you feel about this? And, what do you think about this? And like she said, checking with those conversations, what are your teachers saying? Or, just really advocating. And so I took it upon myself to make sure that I knew, like, even in the schools, like, the curriculum, what books are we reading? No, she's not reading To Kill a Mockingbird with you. She's not sitting in a classroom where she's the only brown-skinned child and you're going to say nigger 25 times. We're not doing that, And so it just really opened my eyes, because I went to a predominantly white school also, and I remember sitting in that classroom, and I remember that teacher reading those words and how I felt and how everyone's staring at me, And so I just didn't want my child to have those experiences, and I felt like it's not necessary. You don't have to read To Kill a Mockingbird to talk about the injustices in the system when we're looking at it every day. You know what I mean?
This
it's still going on. It's not an old story. It's still happening.
It's 2022.
And so I just really took it upon myself to advocate for them in where their environment is. So.
Ooh. And I think that's big, advocating for your kids in so many ways.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. So as a new mom, I have a 2-year-old. I've been already placed in situations, maybe minor, but still situations where I can choose to be my normal, unconfrontational self.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because that's where I find comfort, is like, you know what, I don't want to confront unless I absolutely have to. And I'm like, you have to recognize your son is an absolute have to.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I've been in situations where it's like, oh, should I say something? And then I think about, he's depending on me to say something. He can't advocate for himself.
Right.
And like I said, he's 2. So that's challenging already for me.
Right.
But I want to speak to y'all, like, advocating on behalf of your children in settings like that. Like, how hard is that for y'all?
Yeah.
It is hard, because you do have that internal battle of, when should I say, what should I say?
Yes.
What came, my way a couple of years ago, my son was, I believe he was maybe 3. I can't remember exactly how long, but we had taken a trip to, we went to Atlanta, and I had an aunt who I adore. She was getting married, and so we made it a family trip, but we also made it, we did educational, all that stuff.
Right.
We went up there. And so I took my son and one of my nephews to the MLK Center.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, touring around the center. I was watching my nephew and my son, just go around in awe, and looking at the pictures of Gandhi and reading his words and, and so forth. And even though I have visited that center probably, golly, a good 10 times. Just been there. We go to Atlanta. We visit, this and the other. It never struck me as emotionally as it did when I went with my son and my nephew. Mm-hmm. And I'm just watching. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we're living in times now where we've got to do all this work again.
Yeah.
Whether it's peaceful or not, we got to do all this work. And then I say, you know what? But the work never stopped. It never stopped because we're still fighting. Mm-hmm. Who am I going to be? And I'm walking around in my mind, and I'm all emotional, trying not to show them and everything. Like, what do I have to do? Or what do I need to be? Who do I need to be to continue to show them the way, to continue this work and model for them how to advocate? Mm-hmm. We've got to be that model to show them how to advocate. And then we went into the gift shop, and everywhere, my son had picked out a poster or keychain, an injustice anywhere is, gosh, I cannot remember the quote. I'm so sorry, but it is MLK quote when he talks about how one injustice is an injustice everywhere.
Yes,
when you see one injustice being done, and forgive me, I cannot remember the quote verbatim, but it is.
That's okay, I got Google.
When you, but I just remember, thinking to myself that if they ever see an injustice and I'm around, and I don't say anything, I don't do anything, that's going to live with them. Yeah. And so I said, I cannot ever let it be a battle within myself ever again to not speak up, to not say something, because when I see that injustice, that's an injustice everywhere. Everywhere.
So I just pulled up the quote.
Thank you.
And it says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That's it.
Ooh, that's
injustice
big.
Anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Mm-hmm. That's what it was. That's what I read. Mm-hmm. And when I read that, I just remember going through my mind, like I said, and I can't ever fight that battle internally again. I have to speak up. I have to teach him how to advocate. My nephews and my son are little brown boys who think they rule the world, who believe, not even think, they believe they rule the world. There's nothing that they cannot do. Mm-hmm. And I have always been on the side of, I'm not going to be the one to shut that down. I'm not going to take that away from them, and I'm not going to let anybody else do that. At the same time, as a mother of Black boys, we still have to have those conversations with them of how to navigate the world, but still to shine bright. Absolutely. Never let anybody steal that shine from you, anywhere you are. So that's something that, I don't battle with it anymore. Right. I don't care who gets mad, who got something to say, especially if the kids are around. You're going to hear me speak up. You're going to see me act, because I'm teaching you how to do the same.
Yeah. That representation is key. I definitely, Black art, Black pictures, Black men in suits. Titan loves fashion. Mm-hmm. He loves to be dressed. He would wear a suit every day if he could. And he too believes that he can rule the world.
Yes,
but I believe that representation is key. When they see strong Black men, especially me as a single mother, he's at home with mom and sister. And so I make sure to make intentional arrangements for him to be around men. His grandfather's in his life really strongly, and I appreciate that. Yeah. But as far as advocation goes, we as Black women, we have that stigma of like, we don't want to go there. We don't want to seem aggressive. Ooh. And, you always have those things in your mind as well. And so whenever I'm, addressing an issue, I'm always trying to make sure, that I, come correct. And, I don't want to, because you have that fear of like being that mom, that Black mom.
That Black mom.
Yeah. Yes. And so I always try to make sure, I come properly and, I express myself well written, all of those things, because it's so important, because they're already looking at us.
Right.
You know, they're looking at us.
I
And
hate
so,
that, yeah.
And so I always try to make sure, you know, I never want to embarrass my children by any means, but I'm definitely going to speak up for them.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so, I love that you spoke about that because I just feel like that's a part of our plight, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to, unfortunately, I hate it, but we have to, like you said, come correct or come a certain way so we aren't perpetuating a stereotype.
Right.
But it's unfair to us, right? Like it's so difficult for us because we want to come to you how we want to come to you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you deserve what we given to you, but we gotta put on use these eloquent words so you know just how educated but hood we can get.
Yeah,
we can.
How
get.
black am I gonna have to be in this situation? Yeah,
exactly. And that's something I feel like that's always in the back of our head.
Yeah,
whether it be and I probably wouldn't even say just as black moms, but as black women.
Yeah,
we always have to battle. Like, okay, at work, let me professionally clap back. But the reality is, you deserve my hood clap back. You deserve all my clap back.
And depending on the day, you might
you
not
might
get
it.
You may get it. But I think that's something that speaks to the plight of black women is or black people in general. We constantly have to battle that.
Yeah.
How do I want to show up today?
Right.
How do I want to show up in this specific situation?
Right.
So I hate that, but also I think it is important. Like unfortunately, it is important. But y'all both have been speaking on this word intentionality and being intentional, and I love that word because I think as people we need to be intentional with everything we do. But I think also sometimes it can be hard because of past experiences, past trauma, our upbringing.
Absolutely.
And so what do y'all think? What do y'all think is the biggest difference in how you were raised? And then how intentionally you have to be to raise your children differently. I'll speak for myself. First off, even till this day, I have a 2-year-old, and I try to be intentional about doing better. And I don't know if y'all have been listening for some time, but if y'all have, y'all know I got 5 older sisters. Yeah. I'm the youngest girl. So anytime I do something that's a little bit different, they're like, "Ooh, them new age mamas. Ooh, them new age mamas be this."
Yeah.
And I love my sisters to death. They give me the best advice, sometimes the worst advice, but I love them. Like I'm always gonna value what they tell me. But I know like that I'm trying to do things a little bit differently with my son, and that in and of itself presents challenges. How do y'all balance like and then also I'll speak to this. Even sometimes I want to react to Noah from past experience, like, boy, stop. But it's like, girl, lower your tone. You correct yourself internally so that you can address him the way you want him to address his kids and so forth. And so, how do y'all deal with that? Because that's hard for me.
Yeah. I think it's hard for any of us, especially if you were raised in that. Yeah. You know, do what I tell you to do and come, you should already have respect for adults. That kind of era. It doesn't matter what the adult says, does, this and the other. Have respect, show respect. And that's just not the world we live in. Yeah. It's not. So it is hard, which makes me, luckily I don't have to do this as much, but you pull away from certain people. And just because, your family doesn't mean that I have to listen to you. It doesn't mean that I have to do things, the way you want me to do them or the way that you did them. My band director at Langston used to tell us all the time, those that don't change become extinct. And that has always stuck with me. Everything is constantly changing and evolving. And then I started to learn about things, in relation to growth mindset instead versus a fixed mindset and things like that. And then looking back from a personal standpoint, a lot of, ways that we grew up was very fixed. It was very, protocol-ish. You do this and you do this and you do this. It's just the way that you were expected to go versus, having permission to live. It was live by protocol, not by permission.
Do it this way.
And so, that was something that I realized as I was raising Cheyenne. She was, like I said, she was the only child for almost 10 years, but I was learning and growing right along with her.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm lucky that I do have a supportive family in the fact that on both sides, really all sides, because it's a lot, it's with the exes and this and the other and all that, So everybody is supportive in the fact that, like I said, giving her a voice, and nobody has said, you don't need to be listening to your child. Like, it ain't her, it's you. They've been supportive, and we're going to listen. We're going to see how she feels. and then we're going to make decisions. You know,
Right.
I get the final say,
Mhm.
but at the same time, you know, this is her life, and I've got
Yeah.
to see what's going on in her head and her heart so I can correct it if needed,
Yes.
and I can keep guiding her along the way.
Mhm.
But I think the answer for me has just been to, you know, pull back when I need, because I'm not listening to the noise.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I do, I'll show people, especially my elders, you know, I
Mhm.
respect what you have to say.
Right.
You know, I respect what you have to say.
Right.
And then, exactly. And then I'm going to go.
I'm going to do
You know,
this my
I'm
way. Love you, but.
Yes. But just
Yeah.
to form my family, because I realize, like you mentioned, you're speaking and showing Noah how you want him to do it with his children. And so
Yes.
we have to think generational.
Generational.
We have to think
yes.
generational. We can't think here now, you know, this is mine. No, because this goes
Yeah.
on after us.
My favorite line is, well, it happened to me and I turned out okay. Did you?
But did
Because
you?
we in
But
therapy
did you?
right now trying to heal from all of that. Like, did we really
Right.
turn out okay? Like, let's
Yeah.
be honest. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, we're still here and we're resilient, but
That's
we still
right.
have shit that we have to work through because
Absolutely.
of
So
that.
true.
Yeah.
So yes,
So
it happened
true.
to us, but we don't have to continue the cycle because we
That's
know
right.
how it impacted us.
That's right.
And if you don't know, take some looks at yourself and get some self-awareness because
That's
that
right.
stuff does impact you.
That's
So-
that's the biggest thing for me. The phrase "when you know better, you do better."
Oh,
Yes.
And so
yes.
because mine are so far
Yes.
apart, I tell Masai all the time, you had a different version of me.
Mhm.
And like you said, I had to
Mhm.
grow up with you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you can't be jealous of how I'm parenting him. First of all, you're two different people.
That's right.
Totally.
Right.
That's
You know what I'm
right.
saying? Your personality and his are polar opposites.
Right.
And so I'm a child care professional, you know, I'm an
Uh-huh.
early education professional. And so
Yes.
I've learned so much with just dealing with young children.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
although they don't come with a handbook,
Uh-huh.
there is a best practice.
That's
Mm,
right.
And so
that's good.
My goal is always to evaluate what is the best practice.
Right.
You know, you're not always going to get it right, but when you take time to evaluate how you're going to react to something,
Yes.
Mhm.
you're gonna have the chance to make the
Mhm.
best choice and
Right.
to operate in the best practice. And so
Mhm.
Titan is challenging. My son is challenging. You know, my Messiah, easy peasy. Whatever
Yeah.
you say, Mom.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. You know, we're good.
Yeah.
That
Yes.
boy,
Yeah.
no, ma'am. No, ma'am. Why?
Yeah.
He wants to know the why, when, where of the
Oh,
situation,
man.
Yeah.
and it's just challenging.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's not easy to parent, and you
Yeah.
have to really be on your A game.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
right.
even with that, you know, giving him a voice, like you said, oh, this new age parenting. But like I said, when you know better, you can do better.
That's
You
it,
know,
yeah.
and I can take the time to look at Messiah and say, I apologize.
Yeah, ooh,
You know,
apologizing.
for
Huge.
Black parents apologize.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
parenting. But I did the best that I knew at that
part,
time.
Yes,
Right.
You know, and now that I know better, you don't have that same parent. You know, you have a voice. You can talk to me about anything. Me and Messiah are best friends. You know, she
Yes.
can talk to me about anything. But like you said, the
Yeah.
mom hat stays on.
Mhm.
But within that mom hat is a friendship.
That's right.
And
Ooh, I
so
love that.
we grow together still to this day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Okay.
100%.
And y'all both mentioned something that I think is pivotal, right? Like parenting each children differently based on that child's needs.
Yeah.
But have y'all noticed the difference in your parenting for your daughter versus your sons?
Oh yeah.
And why do y'all think that
Mhm.
exists?
Yeah. I think it exists definitely because of the gender, you know,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure, 100%. You know, my girl, you know, Cheyenne, she is my sunshine, you know, everything. And I say sunshine. I know people use it, the SON, SHIN, but I say that I call her Shy all the time. And so when I, you know, text her anything I do, like I always capitalize the SHI for her because I love her. You know, I love both of my kids, but because we have that bond of us growing together and her like having the front row seat of all my mistakes, my, you know, like she has seen everything in the raw, you know? And so that's another reason I have to parent different too, is because she's seen things that she should not have seen. She's been in situations she should not have been in. Marriages, divorce, you know, relationships, other things, you know, bringing kids in, you know, and just different stuff, career-wise, all of that. She's seen the raw footage of me. So I have to parent her differently to make sure that these are not traumatic experiences that are going to, that lives on. So I parent, but I'm also, nurturing the healing that needs to go on between both of us.
That's good.
I cannot and will not. She's 17. She's going to be 18 at the end of this year. And, I made it, a mission of mine to not send her away broken, not send her out of my house.
On some stuff.
I mean, well,
come on.
I did, but I had to learn too. I had to grow up and realize that I was,
absolutely
100%. And then I'm just so grateful that it hit me in time to get to her, because I was sent out broken. I was sent out with so much trauma, out of my life, my situation with my parents and my family, the way it was. I wasn't going to do that with her, because we're trying to change the cycles. We're breaking chains. We want it to look different for our kids. So,
and how do you do that? Because I know there are people out here listening to this, who may want to do that, but don't know where to start.
Right.
So what are some things that you did to try to break that cycle and make sure you were nurturing that healing process between the two of y'all?
Number one, heal myself, go through my healing process. And healing, it takes work to stay in your healing. And I had to realize that,
come on, it's work.
So once I decided, like, I'm going to do this work, I had to model that for her. So I got my daughter a therapist, I said, you know what, I got my therapy. I'm going through my journey. I need this for me. And now, and she was so against it forever. She really was. And it was something we had to talk through, and I had to explain to her. And then I had to, dredge up some really hurtful, painful, things that we've been through together. And when I pointed out, see how you are reacting to this, see how you are doing it. I said, I can't heal that. That's going to take work between you and your therapist, you and your therapist, and you talking and you trusting and believing. It doesn't always have to hurt like this. It's going to hurt. There are going to be some things that never go away, but it doesn't have to hurt like this. But then I also brought up, my son, Josiah, to her, because he had a completely different, experience. Like you said, there was a lot of jealousy between, well, you do this with him and you talk to him this way. And you do that. It was a lot of jealousy between, and we had to have that conversation that, sweetheart, my journey with Josiah is just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. His pain is different from your pain. You have some similar experiences, but there are things that happened when he came along 10 years later, that, he came into a situation where I was married and where we had family and we had stability and we had, he was born into that.
Same.
So, it's just, and so bringing that to her forefront and making her feel those things and then getting her, we just celebrated a year in January that she's been with her therapist consistently.
Oh, I love that.
And I mean, it's made a world of difference. It's made a world of difference. And then after, a couple of months ago is when I spoke with my ex-husband and I, there was something we both agreed on, that our son needs therapy. I would say everybody needs it, but
I do.
Therapy and Jesus.
It is therapy and Jesus.
Yes.
Great combination.
And red wine.
Can't forget the wine, especially if you're 21.
Right,
you gotta be 21.
But I mean, just letting her see, like, in Josiah too, like, sweetheart, you have big feelings. You have big feelings that we've got to learn how to navigate, because my conversation is different with the 7-year-old who believes, the world is at his feet and nothing is wrong. And, but so having that talk with him, but my language is also different. So with Josiah, I call them heart checks, and I say, let's do a heart check. What are you feeling in your heart? How are you feeling? And so forth. But then I also allow both of them, but more so Josiah, what can mommy do to make something better?
Yeah.
What's something I did that you don't like? Maybe this week, because our arrangement is a week on, week off. Gotcha. And so, we started when I get him at the beginning of the week, and then that's how we end our week. What is something that I did or that's been on your mind that you don't like?
Intentional parenting.
Yes, my mom and dad would have never,
You got a roof over your head, right?
I love them both dearly.
Yeah,
My parents,
yeah.
I love them, but they would have never,
Yeah.
But I ask him, and I have to be prepared for whatever he says, whatever comes out of Josiah's mouth, because he has no filter at all. And he doesn't forget anything either. So the biggest reason I do that is I don't want him going away for a week with something
Harboring
that
those.
you know, so I try to get it all out, right then and there, and then teach them how to not to react. Josiah is very what do you call it, impulsive, and he will react in a heartbeat, and I know how detrimental that can be, especially for our Black boys. Is to be impulsive. So we work on let's respond.
Yeah. You know what I loved about what you said was the beauty in recognizing, like, in telling your daughter, you got a different version of me. And I think a lot of times when we think about, like, and I'm the youngest, so I can't speak from experience, but I can speak from what I witnessed growing up.
Right.
And I witnessed the mom that my older siblings got. Much different from the mom that I got. And I was talking to my therapist about it, and I was feeling like, that's not right. That wasn't fair for them to get that. But it dawned on me the beauty that I did not get that. That means she learned better, so she did better.
Exactly.
And I'm like, don't we want that, right? For our moms, like, she might have gave you this, and of course, that's your own journey. You have to heal from that, and that's something you have to process. But when you think about as a person, someone who can evolve from treating, you or giving you this experience to something different, like I think we just have to see the beauty in our parents' evolution. And I didn't realize it until an adult. So some people may have the same experience, but I think it's important and key to look at our parents and ourselves as human.
Absolutely.
And give them the right to evolve and give them that appreciation that they didn't continue. Now, don't get me wrong, I have my own set of struggles with my mama. Love her to death. That's my girl. But, we still all have our own journey. But I do notice the difference in parenting that my siblings got, that we fortunately did not have to go through. And so I think that was beautiful to kind of actually witness, or I shouldn't even say witness, but to notice, like, oh, now I have this newfound appreciation because you didn't continue. You started to learn better. You did better. And then don't get me started on how she treated grandkids. Don't get me started on how they can't do no wrong. And that's beautiful, because it used to make me jealous, but the reality is I'm glad you're not giving them that same. So, but anyway, Meshell, I want to talk to you about the differences.
There's so many differences. Like she said, gender, age, all of those things you have to take into account, but just personality wise, and I think about, like, when you have multiple children and, one may say, oh, that's mom's favorite. And I feel like, when you can come to the understanding of even us as people, we gravitate to what is likened. If you're like me, like-minded, however, we can mesh. It's harder to have relationships when you don't see eye to eye with someone, when you're not on the same page. And so even with parenting, it's easy when you have a child who's like you, thinks like you, responds how you want them to respond. And it doesn't necessarily make them your favorite. It makes them easier to deal with. And so it's not just, I think about that with my children. I don't have a favorite, but you're easier and I appreciate it. And then of course she would say the opposite, because he's younger, he's the baby, he gets, all the attention, things like that. But it's like he requires more attention. And you have to be intentional with making sure that the easier child gets the attention that they need, because this one is always drawing for your attention. And you have to continue to stay on this one, because you have to correct and redirect and all of these things all day long. But you still have to be mindful and intentional that you're giving the quiet one everything that they need. So I feel like that's the biggest difference. And I like when you were talking and what I was hearing was, allowing them to feel those feelings, allowing them to express those feelings. And I have to do that with my son. It's okay to feel that way, but it's not okay to react that way.
That's it.
And so we have to redirect how we're going to respond to these feelings. You're entitled to your feelings. I'm not going to take them away. And that's, I feel like, me growing up with, African-American parents, you weren't entitled to your feeling. Quit crying. Shut it up. We're not doing that, and they want you to cut those feelings off and not feel those things. But it's important. It's important, especially for boys, to be able to feel those things, because our Black men are so used to having to be strong. You know, you have to be
yes.
strong. You don't cry. You don't feel these things, but they have to have a safe space to feel.
That's so good.
And that kind of leads right into what I
Yes.
want to talk about, because we talked about the differences of how y'all raise y'all's kids, but growing up, what do y'all identify as some differences with how your parents raised you as a Black woman versus how your parents raised your brother as a Black man?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different dynamics at play. Like I said, I'll speak for myself and my experience. There was just a lot of differences. I did know, which my brother is the only boy, so and he's the youngest. But baby, Deuce was baby. Deuce was baby. That was my mama's pride and joy. I know she loved all her kids,
Right.
but Deuce was her pride and joy. And so the way that their relationship was a bit different from her relationship with her daughters. And it looked like favoritism sometimes.
Yeah.
But I also remember sometimes, especially with my dad, where Deuce was given this responsibility, this boys don't cry, this, you know what I'm saying? Of course, he was still kind of baby, but just this different like experience.
Yeah.
And so it was twofold. It's like, yes, he's getting baby by mom, but also he's getting this newfound responsibility. And then especially when my dad passed away, it was also this expectation. And I don't know who gave it to him. I don't know if he gave it to himself or the society did, but this expectation to be the man of the family and to be all of these things at 13 years old.
Yeah.
And so I know that's kind of how it looked growing up for me. What is y'all's experience as far as the difference between how you were raised and your brother?
That's difficult for me. Because my brother is the baby as well.
Okay.
He is the only boy. I'm the oldest. Then we have my sister. She's in the middle, and then we have Kenny. You know, my sister Kenisha, love her death as well. My brother, I would say this, when we were younger and we still had both of our parents in the house, for whatever reason, I gravitated more to my brother. We're 5 years apart. And so I gravitated more to him. But no matter how much I gravitated more to him, Kenisha and Kenny, the middle and the youngest, they still like this, you know, to this day. Yeah. And so I think for me, I've always been jealous of their relationship, you know, but I also felt like at the time, mom and dad, and this is, you know, just in a kid's mind, like I was always given the oldest responsibilities, like everything fell on me. You know, the trouble, everything except for the good stuff, you know? Every time something was broken, every time somebody got hurt, every time somebody was mad, it was me. It was, you know. And if Kenisha, you know, got a whooping or spanking, Kenyelle was getting one too. If Kenny got a whooping or a spanking, Kenyelle was getting one too. You know, just so, but they were always, and it just could have been them too. So I think my frame of mind, and again, that was as a child too, as a kid, and I really didn't understand, you know, a lot of the dynamics or the reasons behind, you know, mom and dad doing what they did and why they did. So either way, I've always felt that difference with my brother, that, oh my gosh, he's the pride and joy because he's dad's junior and that's mama's only boy, you know? Yeah. And still to this day, I call him a brat, you know? He's over 30 years old too, the baby. And I was like, you're still a brat, you know? He got the shoes, the clothes, you know, all of these things that I wanted as the oldest, but never, and not that I never got, because we were always, you know, taken care of, but it was just different. It felt different. I will say that when my parents did, you know, separate and my dad had left, my brother too took on that role. Well, I'm the protector, and I don't even believe he had made teenage years at that time. So he was, you know, still just very young, but he felt like, oh, I gotta take care of mama, I'm taking care of Kenyelle, and I'm taking care of Kenisha, you know, everybody at the same time. And then in me and Kenisha's mind, well, if he gonna take it, then be our protector, you know, little brother. We didn't know any better. But I don't know that he ever grew out of that, you know, so he's always grown up with this grown man mentality and never really got a chance to be a kid. There were situations that happened even in his life that made him grow up, you know, way too soon or sooner than he should have. And I feel that my mom, in seeing that, has always, you know, coddled that, you know, as well, because that's her son. That's her baby.
Yeah.
And she knew that she needed to protect him, but he was in grown man mentality. And it's always been a clash. And that's even something, even now at 37 years old, I'm still trying to figure out the dynamics of mom and brother, or just accept what it is and, you know, move on and leave it alone. But what I will say, what I've seen with my own eyes, even in the state that I'm still confused in a little bit about our, you know, things that happen, he's turned out to be a great father himself, you know, like the odds were stacked against him in so many ways and for so many reasons, but he's a great father, you know, and I see that in him, and I'm like, well, dang, where'd that come from? You know, he didn't have a balance though. He didn't have a male figure to, you know, that was consistent. He had sports coaches and, you know, people that were around, church family and things like that, but not consistent in the home. And so, you know, that's just a conversation that we haven't had, you know, yet. So.
Yeah. For me, it's a little different. I'm the youngest, and my brother's the oldest. Not that we act that way. He definitely acts like that. Yes. But my brother's 4 years older than me, and there was huge differences in the way we were raised. We had mom and dad our whole lives, but my dad was very much the disciplinary, and he was much harder on my brother than he was me. And so, you know, I was daddy's girl, but my brother was just bad, first of all. And so he was a terrible little child, but he stayed in trouble like for everything. And that was just like as far as my dad goes. But as far as like my mom and her side of the family, they're very much partial to boys. And so you could see the difference of the way the boys were raised in the family. And so my brother was very favored and spoiled. They act like he hung the moon. And so, you know, my mom's side of the family with my grandmother and my aunt and all them, they really babied him. And, you know, he was the first baby in the family after, you know, a long stretch. So everybody was much older than him. So with him being that first, you know, baby, they adored him, you know. And so he was really spoiled by my grandmother and aunt and all them, in which I couldn't stand it. I was just like, ugh, you know. But,
right.
But, you know, when you get older, you know, of course, just through growth, you know, you just kind of take it for what it is and build your relationship, you know. So me and my grandmother, as I got older, we really had a good relationship, and she knew that I would do anything for her. But growing up, it was really hard, you know, with the differences, just because he was so favored. It was just like, oh, you know, like me and him, we fought like cats and dogs anyway. You know, when you're close in age, it's just like that with siblings. And so, but he I can say this, he would never let anybody mess with me.
I know that's right.
So if I had to call Mike into town, y'all better watch out. So everybody knew, that his nickname was Maniac. Lord, thank you for deliverance. But they'd be like, you don't want Maniac to show up. No, you don't. If he come, it's gonna be all bad. So my brother was very protective of me, and so I really love that dynamic of our relationship. But it was a huge difference.
And why do y'all think that is? Because I feel like that's a common theme in the Black family, especially with the mom and the sons, or the aunties and the sons. You know, there are always posts that are going around like social media. One of the main ones that I think about when I talk about this is the one that's like, moms will kick their daughters out at 18, but that baby, that son, he can stay however long. Where like the mom will do this with a son, but be like, daughter, get your shit together. You know, X, Y, and Z. And why do y'all think that exists? We can start with you.
I'm not really sure why it exists, but it's definitely a generational thing, because, you know, even like my mom growing up with her brother, like he was the baby boy, so he was favored, you know, and I can just look back at a lot of the males in my family and they were all favored. And so it's definitely a generational thing and I don't even know if it's subconscious or intentional, but it's like the boys are just where it's at for them. And so, you know, growing up as a female in the family, it's just kind of like, you just like a second-class citizen, you know, at that point. And so, and so you just get in where you fit in, like, okay, you know, but then, you know, as you grow up, like I said, and you know, you have these milestones, and then they look at you and see that you've grown into such an amazing person. Then I feel like it's like, they look at you like, girl, where you been? Like, no, I've been here. I've been amazing my whole life, you know. But it's a strange dynamic for sure, and I can't really pinpoint why. But you know, just as far as like, I feel like with the whole dynamic of dad and boys, they're always going to be harder on the boys, you know what I'm saying? And my dad was strict. You know, we were military brats. And so, like, you had to have your shoes. I was 4 years old, and my room had to be clean with my shoes lined up. You know, he did not play, you know, but my brother definitely was disciplined a lot harder for my dad than me.
Yeah. What do you think?
I would think just more along the lines of the generational piece where, you know, if we go way, way, way back and we think about when, you know, we were brought to this country against our will, you know, what could moms do for their sons? They saw their sons on, you know, blocks, on chopping blocks. They saw their sons being, you know, so, and it was the men who went faster and first, you know, before the women and before their daughters. And, you know, any type of punishment issued was, you know, harder and harsher for the men, for their boys, than it was for, you know, slave girls, slave, you know, women. Not that, you know, slave girls and slave women didn't get it. Right. But I think it goes back to, you know, a mindset of mothers feeling hopeless for whatever reason. Black moms have always had this sense of hopelessness. And especially when it comes to their boys and their men. And I really do feel like that is something that has been passed down and passed down and passed down of, you know, this sense of hopelessness for, you know, what can I do for my son? What can I do for, you know, my boy kind of thing. And of course, because the times have changed and evolved, you know, so have the situations, so have, you know, the relationship and the bonds between a Black mom and a Black son. But I really do feel like that there is a sense of that, whatever that hopelessness is or why it exists, it's just never truly gone away. So, I mean, I really do feel like it goes way back further than something that we could put our finger on, you know, right now. It's just something we've seen and we felt. And I mean, I even, that's why I have to be intentional now, is because I felt that when I gave birth to my son. It was just a different feeling. And, you know, by the time he was about 2 years old, I found myself, for whatever reason, finding it harder to say no to him or to discipline him. And I was like, no. You're not about to give him, you know, this whole enabling thing and, you know, this and no. I had to check myself. As a mom. But I don't know, because that's all I've ever seen.
Yeah. And when y'all both were speaking, it kind of hit me. And I didn't think that far back as far as slavery, or I didn't think that deep, I guess I would say. But when y'all were speaking, it dawned on me that it's probably some type of protective mechanism, right? So if we think about the relationship between the Black father and the Black daughter, and then the Black mom and the Black son, it's almost as if the Black father is treating the daughter as this precious gem. You know, soft spot for the baby girl, or for the daughters, and then this toughness for the son, and then the exact opposite from the mom. And I'm wondering if there is some protective mechanism that's like, okay, I know your mom is trying to teach you how to be a woman, so she's trying to instill these things, and she's harder on you for X, Y, and Z. So I want to come in and give you the softness and what you should be getting from your husband. And then also for the mom, it's like, okay, I know your daddy gonna be hard on you, so let me give you this softness. So that kind of like, I guess, was a light bulb in my mind. Like, maybe that's kind of where it stems from. I don't know. I think sometimes, regardless of where it stems from, it can be unhealthy. On both ends, right? On both ends. Moms and sons, daddies and daughters. It's like, you know, come on. Like, let's be protective of our daughters and our sons. Let's teach them the way that they should go and discipline them. I wouldn't say the same way, but also in a way in which it is going to be healthy for both, right? Because I do know growing up, you know, it just doesn't feel good to feel like, oh, my brother is being favored, or Deuce can do this, or little brother can do this, or big brother can do this. But when I do it, it's a problem. I was watching Blackish the other day, y'all. I love that show so much. Sad it's ending, but It was an episode where Jack and Diane were getting in trouble, or they weren't getting in trouble. Diane was getting in trouble because they found her Instagram. And in her Instagram, I think she might have had like a crop top or whatever. She was just showing a little bit of skin. And it was like, oh, no. It was all hell broke loose. But then Jack is over there posting pictures with his shirt off and things like that. And they're like, oh, no, it's Jack. Yeah.
Yep.
So sometimes it's a double standard that can be unhealthy.
Yes.
I don't know the answers to how to make it healthy.
Yeah.
I too, like y'all, I think kind of feel it a little bit. Like I don't know. It kind of feels like it was kind of passed down to me. But I'm also trying to think, which luckily I don't have one kid, one little boy, but trying to be intentional that like I'm protecting him just as much as I would, my daughter and things like that. So
makes sense.
That's interesting. And it's interesting. I think that it's just been continuing on generation to generation. But I do want to kind of shift subjects a little bit. So we've talked about like the differences between raising, Black sons and Black daughters. But now I want to kind of go back to us as mothers and as parents and our plight. And I know our journey in motherhood starts essentially when we find out we're pregnant.
Right.
Like lots of things change for us as the women. I remember finding out that I was pregnant and not being happy about it. Like, I'll be honest, I just was not happy. I was sad. And my husband is like, bro, what? Like, it's okay. Like, we gonna be good, blah, blah, but it's like, it's different for you.
Yeah.
And we had to have a conversation of like, yes, we are in a decent situation, but being pregnant for 9 months changes a lot of things that I had envisioned for myself. Right. My body, my career aspirations, it can change. It impacts all of that. No matter how we point it out. Whereas to you wake up tomorrow morning, you don't feel sick. You wake up the next 9 months and you don't physically feel it. And so I kind of want to talk to y'all about y'all's experience as moms, finding out you're pregnant, and then the difference in how it looked for you versus your partner who got you pregnant. Like, what did y'all experience during that time?
Lots of similarity to what you just said. My mind was just different because at 19, I had realized that if I was going to make the decision and just being completely transparent to keep this child, then my world is just going to change. It's going to change. And at the time I was like, it's going to be upside down. There was nothing in the beginning that was positive about it for me. And I mean, I will also say, again, just in all transparency, it wasn't my first pregnancy with her. And so I felt like, even reflecting back, that I made the decision to keep Cheyenne, which never regret in my mind, for doing that, because I didn't make the decision to keep the first one. And I was much younger. And I was like, well, if I have a choice, this is the choice I'm going to choose, and I did. And that was difficult because I was so young. I wasn't ready. And then here I am. I made the mistake again. Well, I didn't feel good about the first choice I made. So let me go ahead and, I'm just going to do this one. And that's where I was. Her father, he was completely supportive. He was like, what's our decision? What's our decision kind of thing. So I was good in that regard, but at the same time, he knew it was kind of like a guilt, yes, if you will, like a guilt, we gonna do this, kind of thing, which did, that changed our relationship. It changed our relationship. We got to know each other in a different way. We had, known each other for a while, but it was just kind of one of those things like, okay, we're going to do this. So either way, I didn't feel in the very beginning, it took me a while to feel good about anything. And that was even, through birth, because family wasn't happy. I kind of spoke to that a little bit. Just so much going on in the family. Friends really didn't know what to think, what to feel. They were like, oh, no, not Kenyelle, yes, Kenyelle. I left school for a year, left college for a year, go back home, work, and, do my thing. But it was never until I don't know. It was even after Cheyenne's birth that I felt any kind of like, okay, I think we can do this. And even in that, I apologize. I lost the original question. I kind of took myself.
I did too, because I'm following you.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
That was completely unexpected.
Just basically like how you how the difference, of your feelings of giving up your body for 9 months opposed to your
thank
partner.
you.
Because
I don't know how I got off on that. I started going, just
we'll
thinking.
Cut all of that too, so we'll be good. Because I forgot to. No, you good.
I just thought that was completely unexpected.
Give me something to do.
Yeah. So at the time, I would say, especially the body piece of it, I was, we had just finished up, when I found out we Langston cheerleaders, we had gone to nationals and won nationals for the first time. So talk about body goals. It was good. I was like, I've never been so happier with myself and to be and felt more, beautiful and more accepting of myself. So body was definitely the physical image part of it.
Oh yeah.
Whew, I was sad because I was proud of myself and happy.
Yes.
Her dad, like I said, he was on a whole nother level anyway. There's a huge age difference, 8-9 years between her father and I. And so he was just kind of that whole, whatever you want to do, whatever, what can I do? How can I support you? And he's always been that way, essentially. What can I do? And I was also blessed in the sense that it wasn't just what can I do, but his family has always been a huge part of, Kenyelle's plan. Because that's what it was mine, but essentially, God's at the same time. But they've always had a open ear, open mind about how we can support Kenyelle through this with Cheyenne, with my first daughter. So it was just all around. It was just not a happy time for me until it was happy, later down the line. But I definitely, it had a lot to do with my physical appearance, stemming from little black girl issues that I had. From hair to body to all of that, to skin tone, all of it,
Yes.
But I took all of that into consideration when I found out I was pregnant, but he never portrayed any of that, on me. Almost 10 years later with Josiah, completely different. I did, he was planned in a sense, in a way, but I also was just kind of like, well, this is what we're going to do. So I was ready for it. I was ready for it. And it was something that his father had wanted at the time more than I did to have a child. So yet again, he was ready to, go on the whole ice cream runs and massage the feet and do all of that. He was ready for those things because honestly, that's, him wanting to have a child, was brought to me by him. And so I was just kind of like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have a child kind of thing. So I don't know. But that's just kind of where it goes. But again, I don't know how I got off on that first.
No, you're good. What about you?
For me, both pregnancies, like she said, total opposite, total different areas of life. I was 24 when I got pregnant with Messiah. And like I said, I was living my best life in a whole nother state. And so with her, when I found out I was pregnant, I was very disappointed, in myself. You always feel like not me. I know I did. I was like, it's not me.
Yeah.
But you too. It can happen to anyone. So with her, it was the same thing as far as body struggles. I always struggled with my weight growing up. I was a chubby kid. And so, I was thin when I got pregnant with her. So it was kind of, heartbreaking, like the one time in my life, So, I wasn't excited. Like I didn't have a wonderful pregnancy with her. Everything was just, kind of meh, even in the delivery, when the doctor came in and he was like, you ready for your epidural? And I was like, I don't know. Like, if you say so, am I ready? I don't know. I've never done this
all the time.
And I was like anti-breastfeeding, like, no, that's weird. I was just a lot younger, and so it was just a totally different scenario. Me and her father, it was a situationship, we weren't in a relationship like that. And so he didn't really have a lot of input. And so I already knew in my mind it was me and her. At that point, I'm about to have a baby. It's not we're about to have a baby. And so I already had that mindset from day one. And so it was no disappointment because I already knew. But with Titan, it was a totally different scenario. I was married, I was in my 30s, and so I felt like, my biological clock was ticking, although, women have children in their 40s now. But, in your own mind, you always have these things set up of how you want to live your life and how you think it's going to happen. And so I felt like, I'm in my 30s and we both wanted a child. He didn't have any children. Titan was his first child, first grandbaby of the family. And so it was just a huge ordeal, And so with him, it was intentional. I had a whole app on my phone when I was ovulating. I'd be like, when you get home, it's going down. And everything was just very intentional with him. And so it was a totally different scenario. And so, it was such a joy. Like I enjoyed being pregnant with Titan. I enjoyed every little thing about it. When we went to the ultrasound and I was like, please, God, let it be a boy. Let it be a boy. Because I had prayed and prayed. And when she said it was a boy, I was just like, oh, okay. I'm set for life. God, that was the only prayer I needed answered. Whatever else, I'm just going to roll with it after that. And so, everything blew. It was just a really exciting time in my life. The baby shower was huge. And, he was excited. I was excited. It was just, we were on the same page. And so it's definitely a difference when it's intentional.
Right.
It's a totally different feeling. I wanted to breastfeed him. I wanted to do all those things. I had him naturally. I didn't have an epidural. Everything that I didn't get to experience the first go round because I was young and really didn't know and I really didn't care. You know? And so it was just a totally different situation.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And so you kind of brought up your experience giving birth. And I kind of want to talk to y'all about the experience that y'all had with y'all's medical team through both pregnancies. Do y'all feel like y'all got the treatment that y'all deserved? I know a lot of times as Black women, we don't. I remember my experience, and I think I've shared this on the episode before, but when I got pregnant with Noah and I was about to have him, for 2 days, I went to the emergency room back to back. So I went one day, I went the other day, just because I was having some pain. I thought I was contracting, but every time I went, they were like, "Oh no, you're fine. You're dilated to a 1 or 1 point." But I wasn't dilated, and I'm like, okay, I know my pain tolerance is not this low, or maybe it is, but I'm like, this hurts. I'm experiencing something, and I could not pee, and I kept telling them this same thing. Finally, I think the 3rd day they went ahead and took me in. And they were like, okay, we'll just take you. We'll induce you. Your doctor's here. Things like that. And when they were hooking me, or they asked me if I wanted epidural. And throughout my birth plan, I did not want one. I didn't want one. But the pain I was feeling, I was like, I have to. I can't. If this is what a 1-2 feels like, I'm not going to make it. Right. And so they were giving me the epidural, and they inserted it. And they hooked me up to the catheter. And when they hooked me up to the catheter, that's when the nurse was like, oh, my gosh. The reason why you were experiencing so much pain is because I guess Noah was positioned in some way where he was on my bladder and I could not release it. So she said my bladder was extremely full, which is why I was experiencing so much pain, even though there was not that much going on. And so something I had been talking to them for days about was relieved once they gave me the catheter, and they did a ultrasound to look at all that stuff, and they said everything was fine. But when I talked to the nurse about it, she was like, they should have saw that your bladder has been enlarged. You have a few days worth of urine in your bladder. No wonder you're experiencing so much pain. And honestly, y'all, during that time, I didn't think much about it. I'm just like, oh, I knew I wasn't crazy. But then I remembered hearing other Black women's experience of you saying y'all, something's wrong, or, oh, I'm experiencing this pain, and you're kind of dismissed. And I realized that's my story too. I experienced not being heard, and not being, protected in that time where I'm telling you something's wrong. You're not trying your hardest to identify it. You're dismissing me, thinking that there's nothing wrong. And the reality is, and the nurse even mentioned, I'm so glad we did this when we did, because who knows what the outcome could have been if something would have exploded in your bladder or things like that. So I want to hear from y'all. Did y'all have the treatment that y'all deserved throughout your pregnancies?
I would say at 19, I wouldn't know. I don't. There are things that are such a blur around that time. what I will say is I was blessed enough to have a Black woman as
Come
my
on.
OB
Yes, that's good.
doctor as a teenager. And I had been with her for a couple of years because of that prior experience that I had had. And I truly believe I was at a point of vulnerability where I didn't know how to look out for myself. I didn't know what I was supposed to be feeling, what I wasn't supposed to be feeling, but she did. And I feel like she did completely look after me. And with both pregnancies, I did. I had a Black OB doctor. And so as a younger me with Cheyenne, I have to, definitely give that credit to my mom, who, as much as she didn't want to, be a part of it because she had 2 teenage daughters pregnant at the same time. She was that voice every now and then, when she felt like talking to me. But then the fact that I had a Black OB doctor, me and my sister, we had the same doctor, that did help. I do not believe that anyone else would have been able to look out for me like she did at that time. She was a mother. She was also a grandmother. And she knew. And she had 2 teenage, Black girls, that she was caring for. And so I believe that made all the difference. So that one was not, on my part, done on purpose at all. What it did do the second time around, with Josiah, at the time I had a white male PCP doctor. And so when he asked me, after we found out we were pregnant, he asked me, he was like, okay, well, who would you like for your OB? Because I was still not fairly new to Oklahoma City, but I just hadn't had to see anybody outside of him. And so, when I thought about it, he gave me all these names and places to go and visit, and, just kind of do a lightweight little interview at some places, walk into some hospitals and their wards and things like that. And I did that, and I had never felt so disrespected, on the north side of Oklahoma City. No, disregarded, or more disregarded, more overlooked, when I was simply coming to ask questions, had did the proper things, set up appointments, let them know what I was looking for, and we're excited, we're expanding our family, blah, 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 the whole works. He sent me to all these different places, and not a single person looked like us. And we felt it, and it showed. And so when I went back to him, and he was like, well, did you find an OB yet? And he was a great physician. And I told him, no. I said, we don't feel comfortable with anybody you gave us. Not a single. They were all white men and white women, or of Eastern descent, and it just didn't feel good. And so he finally, right in his own office, his very last thought was to refer me to a Black OB doctor. Who, upon meeting her, Immediately. I mean, we were practically the same age, she, at the time, she had not started her family yet, but just the conversation that we had, and how she was going to be able to, look after her, and what the process was, and what it looked like without her, if a practitioner, if a nurse or somebody had to come into play, that made a world of difference. But I think about how many people don't have the opportunity to look and seek out, who their OB is going to be, and so forth. But I didn't experience things that I probably would have and could have experienced because I had a Black woman as my physician.
Yeah. What was your experience, Meshell?
Like she said, when I was younger, I really didn't do the research. The OB that I had, he was a white male, very dry. And like I said, at that point, I didn't really care about much either. I didn't know what to ask or what to expect. And so I don't really feel like I was necessarily unheard, but it wasn't a wonderful experience that I have any, significant memories about. I can say that. I was sick with my first pregnancy. I did have preeclampsia. And so I ended up being induced, and she was about 4 weeks early. But when I went in, I think I was seen by, he wasn't in. And so I actually went in just to drop off a collection, because they had gave me this bottle to pee in for some days. And it was like hardly any urine at all. And so when I went in, I dropped it off. And then my mom was like scared to death because I used to wake up so swole, like I couldn't even open my eyes. And so she went in and talked to somebody while I was trying to go to the nail shop, to be honest. And they were like, oh, no, she needs to go to labor and delivery. And so she messed up all my plans. They were like, no, you go straight to labor and delivery. I was like, no, I need to get my feet done. And so I remember that, I went straight and was induced with her. But with Titan, same thing. Like, I did the research that time, but I didn't see anyone who looked like us as an option. And so, I went with, regular star ratings and reviews and different things like that. And he was a fine physician. I don't have any significant, things to say about him either. I know when I was giving birth to Titan, the nurses and staff were really caring. Like I said, I did it all natural, no drugs. And so they kind of act like, I don't know, like I was a dinosaur, like no one does that anymore. And they were just like, thank you for allowing us to witness that. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, it was terrible for me. Like, I have a high tolerance for pain, but like I had a whole outer body experience giving birth without drugs with him. And so it was crazy. And when Titan came out, he actually had the cord wrapped around him. And so they didn't tell me that. I guess they didn't want me to panic or for whatever reason, but the doctor knew this and he was like, don't push. And I was like, I'm not pushing. Like every time I have a contraction, like I can feel him coming out of me. So I did get panicked at the end of, delivery. And so he came back in and, he was delivered and, he immediately cut the cord from around his neck. And then he's holding this cord looking at my husband at the time, like, do you want to cut this? And he's like, no, like, absolutely not. So it was a different experience, but I don't have anything significant. I just, I'm real even keel. I don't have a lot of complaints or anything like that. So I just feel like I was just probably an easy patient. But
Yeah. Okay. Do y'all feel like, even just throughout life, do y'all feel like there are differences in how we are treated when it comes to medical concerns, whether it be your, OB or not? Do y'all feel like sometimes when you or maybe your kids see a physician, you're not as heard as
I do feel like that, especially, with the stigma of, like I said, Black women, like we're stronger. They just act like we have high tolerance of pain and we're strong. And I feel like it's a difference, especially when we're generally complaining about something. And with me, my experience is I don't really particularly care for women doctors. I feel like they don't listen to me. They act like, you're being extra or over the top when you're generally expressing a concern. I feel like with me, my experience has been with males, they've been a little bit more compassionate about voicing those concerns.
Yeah. What about you, Kenyelle?
I do think it makes a difference just about who you go to, where you go, and things like that. And it wasn't until my experience with seeking out an OB for Josiah that I realized that I had it in my mind. That was a world that I was naive to, because I just generally went to the doctor if I had, a little allergy, asthma kind of flare up kind of thing, give me my meds and I'm on my way. I never really felt like I needed care, but of course, as we get older, more things start popping up and this, that, and the other, so it matters more. But when I did experience that was hurtful in me because I was seeking out help and I just wanted to ask questions and people would look at me like, who do you think you are, kind of thing, and I'm like, I'm just trying to find a physician, it's like, what's wrong with that? But that experience right there was when I did start
noticing,
vetting everybody. I vet you. I mean, I go to all the reviews and all the research. I talk to people, even doctors, but other doctors, or I find what circle are you in and things like that. Mainly because of that experience that I had with trying to find an OB doctor when I was pregnant with Josiah. And it does matter. So who my children see now, their pediatrician, very intentional. It took a minute to get to that place because I didn't want them to ever feel disregarded or, like you said, not heard and, things like that. So because it does matter. I need to see how you're going to talk to me. And if I want to interview you, how do you respond to that? How do you take that? If I would just want to have a conversation with you to see if you're a right fit versus me just trusting that you you are who you say you are who you are on paper.
Because my health matters.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I want to take it serious. Okay, so we kind of talked about y'all's journey to motherhood and then your experience being pregnant. How was postpartum for y'all? Like, did y'all have a good experience? And I guess we could speak to both pregnancies and both children. Like, what was that experience like?
Cheyenne, again, postpartum was heavy and hard. She was not, like I said, it was at the time a disruption, to what I had going on, what I thought I had going on in life. I had, big plans, big dreams, that I had, that people around me had. Going to college, I was on a couple of different scholarships and things like that, and I messed all of that up. So, moving, stopping school and moving back to Tulsa, which is where I grew up, that was hard. It was hard and heavy. So I experienced a lot of postpartum with her. I remember being in the hospital at the time. My mother, I believe, had bronchitis at the time of her birth. So, she just wasn't able to be around. And, her grandmother on her dad's side was, she was there. They both were in the room. But then after giving birth, everybody was gone, everybody was gone. Her dad at the time had back surgery. It was just me. And I remember being in that hospital by myself. It was a week. And, they usually don't typically keep you, past the 2 or 3 days or so. But I remember a nurse finally coming in and asking me, like, do you have anybody that's coming to see you? Or do you have anybody, who's going to help you out and things like that, and ask me these questions. And every time, I would just sit there and cry. And I felt very alone. I had, family support in a sense, but somebody being there right with me, I was alone in that regard. And then, of course, with my sister having her newborn and things like that. So I remember her telling me, like, we're going to keep you an extra day or so. And then she came in the next day and said the same thing. We're going to keep you an extra day just to make sure. So I did. I had to stay in the hospital for a while because my mind just wasn't right. My mind wasn't right. My heart wasn't right. When I did get home with her, it was just me and her. It was just me and that baby. And I had to, just start learning to do life with her. And that postpartum, it set in, and it was hard. So I made a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of tears. I probably cried all the time while breastfeeding her. I know she felt all of that. But I am thankful that, there was a point when her dad's family, they stepped in and, people did start helping me. And then when I wanted to, made that decision after talking with my sister about going back to college. My sister wanted to go to college, and I was like, okay, well, let's do this together with our babies. Things started to look up for us, and then life started to take off a little bit more. With Josiah, the postpartum, the depression part of it it looked a little bit different because, as I had previously stated, his dad wanted to have a baby more so than I did at the time. And I wasn't upset about it. I wasn't, wrong. I just didn't think it was the right time for our family. I knew I wanted to have a child with him. I just didn't think that was the right time. And so with that pregnancy, my mother, I was here in Oklahoma City. My mother came up for 2 weeks. She was there every step of the way for those first 2 weeks. So it looked different. I got to have some time to myself, time to reflect. But at the same time, I could see things changing around me in my marriage and my career and things like that. And I began to be a little bit more, down on myself and depressed about those things. And they spiraled. And life continued to spiral for like the next 2 years until I decided that I needed some help. So postpartum was real. I didn't get the help when I needed it and probably, should have gotten the help, which is why I think it's important no matter what age you are and you are, pregnant, expectant, just delivered, you've got to talk to somebody. It's so important. You've got to talk to somebody.
Yeah. What's your experience?
For me, I can probably recognize it now, when you're in it, and especially just the mindset, like at that point in life, I was like, depression, it's not even a thing, it's not real.
Yeah.
But, like I said, as you grow, you know better, you do better. When I had Messiah, I was a lot younger, and I don't know that I had postpartum depression. I know that I was sitting here thinking about it because I didn't want to breastfeed her. And the nurse kind of was pressuring me to try it. And she was like, well, just try it. And I was like, I don't want to breastfeed. Because they asked you, are you going to try to breastfeed? And I was like, no, ma'am. And she was like, well, you should just try it. And I was like, no, I don't really want to. She was like, well, just try. And she just kind of pressured me. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. That's not something I want. Can you bring me a bottle, please, ma'am? I felt really disrespected and hurt in that aspect of it. And just but when we got home, I did have a lot of support with her, and so it wasn't I guess I would say too traumatic. It was just like she said, life interrupted. Your whole picture, it just flips. And so I was back at home, in Oklahoma with my parents, and it just, everything looked different, and it was not part of the plan.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of the depression part with me. But with Titan, there was no real postpartum depression. I know that I felt really secluded because I was breastfeeding him. And so I felt like I was always in the room breastfeeding. That's all I was doing. And so I felt just trapped. And I had at that time a whole nother child, that child needs you. They need things, and it's like, hold on, I got to breastfeed. Hold on, I got to go pump. And it was just I breastfed for 3 or 4 months. And then after that, I was like, I can't take it. I feel like this is consuming my whole life. And I know that breastfeeding is a huge commitment, and I take my hat off to any mother who does that. But I know, as for me, it didn't fit what I needed for my other child. I had to be cognizant of what her needs were too. Every time she's coming to find me, I'm sitting there pumping or feeding, and so that's what my biggest issue was with that.
Yeah. And you, well, y'all both hit on postpartum depression and, postpartum anxiety just exists. But how do y'all feel as a community of Black people, we handle postpartum as well as just any mental health issues? What are y'all thoughts on how we currently deal with it as a community? And then how do y'all kind of fight that stigma? I know you already mentioned being in therapy, but what are some other ways that that you actually fight that stigma of what it looks like?
Not being ashamed to share.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest part. Is I remember when I first sought out therapy for myself when I was, had just had Josiah and things like that. I didn't tell anybody. I'd lie about where I was going. I wouldn't telling anybody. Yeah. I was very ashamed, that I was helping myself, that I was getting help. So I think not being ashamed to share that you're not okay, being able to say to people, I'm not okay. I need some help. I'm not at my best right now. And I know it's going to take some work to get back there. As a community, I think we're getting better because we have more people speaking out.
Yeah.
We've always had that stigma in the Black community. What goes on in your house is nobody's business, and you better not go say nothing. And if you say something, I'm getting you. That was just not a thing. You don't talk about what goes on in your house. As a community, we're growing. I'm going to say that we're growing because there are still people who still have that belief that, you are right. Ain't nothing wrong with you. Just pray about it.
That one.
That one.
It's just you. We can pray about it, but what's the action behind that?
Right.
What are you going to do about it? And it doesn't mean just because you put some action, faith without works is dead. Just because you put some action behind what you believe doesn't mean that you don't believe and trust that God can fix it, whatever your faith may be, or that whoever the higher power is. But no, sharing instead of being ashamed is huge.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree, especially the part of, traditional religion, the Black church, that, the idea of we could just lay hands and pray everything away. And that's, why I said earlier, Jesus and therapy, because, he gave us wisdom, and, these things are available to utilize, these resources. And I feel like we definitely as a community have started to take more advantage of those resources, and it's not as taboo, even just within my family. I grew up in church, and so, just the religion aspect of it, I want my kids to understand that, all that's wonderful, but at the end of the day, you still have these resources that are okay, and there is no shame. When you talked about the shame part of it, and you didn't want anyone to know you were going to therapy or you were talking about it. It's like, because it's like, what's wrong with you? So that is a big part of it for sure.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Well, we didn't unpack some good stuff. I'm so grateful for y'all. So as we close this out, I want to ask y'all, what is some advice that you will actually scratch that before we get to the advice component? I want to talk about, after uncovering all of your experience as a Black mother, and not all of it, but after discussing these topics, if you had to summarize your experience as a Black mom into one sentence or one phrase, what would that phrase be? Like, what do you feel like embodies your plight as a Black mom or a Black woman?
I would say evolution. Just not being afraid to grow and evolve.
Yes.
Don't stay, you don't have to stay where you are.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
That's good. I would just have to say that it's that's a tough one to sum it all up.
It's hard. How can we, right? Like, we go through so much, we do so much.
I would say it's symphonic. Symphonic. I think of a symphony when I think about this journey, because it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and it's going to continue to be, until. But it's symphonic because in a symphony, I just think about how you have so many different parts. Doing so many different things, reading so many different pieces of music, but to the ear of the receiver, it's beautiful. It all ends up, being all these different parts, that are all over the place in one piece of music. And when it comes out, you've got this beautiful, piece of music. You have this beautiful song, whatever it may be. And that's just how I see this journey that I've been on. So many different moving parts. Like, I can't even explain. How I'm all over the place, but focused at the same time.
Okay. And so again, before we get to the advice, I want to ask y'all and kind of make it more lighthearted. What has been your favorite part about raising your children? Like, what do you have a favorite story from your kids? No, my favorite story with Noah, he's only 2. But the other day, and I shared this on social media, but the other day, it was Monday, and I was getting Noah ready for school. And as I was getting him ready for school, every morning he acts like he doesn't want to go. And I'm the type of person, I have anxiety. I struggle with anxiety. So when he starts showing signs he don't want to go, why you don't want to go? What's going on? The teacher, I'm asking all these questions, trying to figure it out. The reality is, after asking all of this, it comes down to Noah doesn't want to go to school because he'd rather his teachers come to his house. And it makes sense because he's a homebody. Just like his parents. Like, oh, okay, so you don't not like school. You just like house. You like your home more. You like your toys. You like not sharing. So anyway, so the one morning, I'm like, okay, no, it's time to go. Y'all, he runs into his room, slams the door, and says, nope. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This is that stuff I'll be talking about. This is what I go through every morning. And so I start recording because I'm like, I want people to see this experience that I have with Noah in the morning. And so I start recording. I'm like, y'all, this is what Noah does every morning. So he slammed the door. I'm like, okay, so I try to open it. He's on the door. So as soon as I open it, I let it go because I know he's on the door. It slams right back. So I'm like, y'all, this is Noah. So I finally open the door. I'm like, Noah, it's time to go. He's like, no. He starts playing on his little couch in his room. I'm like, okay, Noah, I'm about to have to pick you up so we can go. So just know that you're about to get picked up. So I pick him up. We get in the car, finally get us out the door. We pull up to the daycare. Yeah, he's 2. Guess what he started doing? Faking like he sleep. No, and he do a good job. Yeah, he's like, I'm like, no, you sleep. He don't say nothing, but he starts fake snoring. No, I'm like, no, you did this. So I started cracking up and I said, okay, Noah, he's still holding himself together. Oh, I said, Noah, I'm about to have to start tickling you to get you up. He opened his eyes to the corner. He's like, he started teasing. He like, no. And then act like he's asleep again. And so finally he wakes up. I get him out the car and he walks into school and he's like happy about it. Yeah. But that's so far my funniest experience because one, why are you 2 and already knowing how to sleep? Secondly, I know exactly why because me and his daddy so childish. And so at the house, we fake sleep all the time. Like, no, daddy come in, be quiet, act sleep. We both fake sleep. And, so I'm like, oh, this is where he gets it from. Yes. But yeah, so do y'all have like a favorite story or just one of your favorite things about being a mom to your children? Probably a lot of them.
Yeah. At this point.
Okay, how about this? What's one of the craziest things that your kid did, or the funniest thing that your kid did?
I mean, I would say, like my favorite thing about being their mom is just, the moments that we share. There's just so many. Like, and maybe if I sat down and really, reflected on it or started looking back on things that I've written down, I could probably pinpoint, that one made me laugh like really, really hard. And that was good. I could, think back. But just the moments that we share in the laughter. Yes. I didn't get to do a lot of that, growing up. Yeah. It was very situational, but we laugh a lot. We talk about, me and the kids, especially Cheyenne and Josiah, we talk about love languages a lot. Ooh. And so we came to the conclusion one night, we was, sitting at the table and we do either like Trouble or Uno or something. And at the end, when it was all said and done, Cheyenne was like, they left off a love language. And I was like, what you mean they left off a love language? We got this, all 5 of them. Because we try to, be mindful of each other. Uh-huh. And she said, they left off laughter. Oh, they left off laughter. I was like, girl, you're right. They did.
Laughing is a love language.
That is the one. That's the one that just connects us. The 3 of us. I will say that. But then even when my husband. But yeah, so laughter. So we just laugh a lot, and we make it a point to laugh a lot. Yeah. But Josiah, this I don't know how funny this is to other people, but. Recently, him and Cheyenne, their thing, she takes him, they go eat Panda Express, that's their little brother-sister thing, They eat Panda Express and watch, Avenger movies and all that stuff. Okay. And so one day, he was actually in the car with my mom and, it's like, where you going? Panda Express, we getting Panda Express. And I just tell him like, you gonna turn into a panda. And I'm just mad because I said, you just had Panda Express with your sister yesterday. Yeah. And so then he said, well, if I'm turning into a panda, you turning into a winery. I said,
my kids be reading us like that.
They do.
I said, and then I'm like, Mama, you on speakerphone? I'm sitting there like, Mama, did you just hear him? In the car, because she was like, Kenyelle, I'm trying not to laugh.
Oh my goodness.
Not a winery.
Said, why you think I'm turning into a winery?
Kids is funny.
Cut down.
I know. Well, it was so funny. Yeah. I said some people I can tell that too, and they just it'll
absolutely.
Be funny. But he knows. He knows. He's like He said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He said, "Mama." He said, I know you got 15 minutes. He does. He said his little 15-minute timer on his little tablet or whatever. He said, you got 15 minutes, enjoy your wine, and then it's me time. And that's what he says, Yeah. So
that's cute.
I just thought that was hilarious. Like, boy,
crazy. I feel like fellow wine drinkers definitely understand. Okay, because I like my glass. I like my glass.
Yes.
My favorite part by far is just watching them overcome things and do things that they never thought they could do, and then also just when I see me in them, it's amazing and scary at the same time. Like but just Messiah with her education, and she had a really rough start with reading and things like that, and now she's a 4.2 student on the National Honor Society, and it's just like that right there is just like so exhilarating for me, you know what I mean? Because it's so important, and I'm, and you stay on them, but then when you see the fruits of your labor, you're like, okay, I'm doing something right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And just to hear like compliments from teachers or other people, about your child, it makes you just really feel good. And because we get the worst of our kids. They act out for us, they show out, but it's a good feeling to know that when they go out, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Right.
So I think by far that's my favorite part.
That is so good.
That's awesome.
So
awesome.
good.
Okay, so finally we're to this part of advice, and we try to leave every episode with either couples or whoever we have on sharing some type of advice with the people listening, because we feel like our purpose on this earth is to share our story so that people can learn from our mistakes and our triumphs and just everything that we've been through. And so, like I said, we're very intentional about ending every episode with something that someone can take away. So do y'all have any advice for Black moms out there who may be trying to do the things that or maybe going through the things you went through, or trying to get to the place that you are, whether it comes to your experience as a mom and where you are as a mom now, or you with your mental health, or just anything? We would love for you to share it right now.
Yeah. What I would say, I take this everywhere I go, and I don't knock anybody who does say this, but when you say my children are my world, just really to reflect on what you mean by that and what your actions are in relation to that statement. What I say is that my children are not my world, but they mean the world to me. And that is all five. Good. All five. My bonus babies as well. Not my world, but you mean the world to me. And the reason I think about that so much and reflect on that so much is because I think about what my world is and what my world looks like, and putting me first and putting myself in a position to care for them and to continue growing them and nurturing them. Because what would happen if they are your world? What happens when your world grows up and graduates and leaves the house, and now you and your husband or you and yourself are empty nesters? What happens when your world finds their significant other or gives birth to their child? And what happens to your world when, God forbid, something is taken from you or your world is taken from you?
That's good.
You're going to be crushed. What are you going to hang on to then? You got to have yourself in order. You got to have yourself intact, and make you the center of your world before you do anybody else, and that's children included.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good. Yeah, that's real good. That's something I work on. So that was good to hear. I think my advice would be find your tribe.
Yes,
find like-minded people, like-minded moms that you can go to and utilize your resources. It's so much, social media has just opened up so many avenues, and whatever you may be going through, it's definitely somebody going through it as well. Don't be ashamed. Look for that outlet, look for that help. Even when I think of Facebook groups, like I'm in a Facebook group called Melanin Mommies of Edmond, different things like that, where you can find, your tribe, people who you can lean on and depend on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think both of those are so important. I know for me, because I'm trying to be intentional about how I am with Noah, I try to find moms who are doing and have been doing some of the things that I want to do. And I remember you recommended a book to me when I first had Noah, which was The Whole Brain Child. And I feel like since then, one, I love that book, but since then, anytime, and then also with you working in childcare, anytime I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do, because I'm battling, wanting to do better, but also like, boy, you got to get what I got. I know I can reach out to you and be like, okay, Noah's hitting. I don't really know how to respond to this. Like, I don't want to hit him back, but I also don't want him to hit his school. I don't, so it's like that balance of like what I went through versus what I want to do, but also getting the outcome that we need. Like, what do I do? And having that tribe of people who are modeling what you want to exhibit in your child is important. But then also remembering, like you said, you're the world to me, but you're not my world. I can't center everything like around you, because then I'll lose me. Exactly. And I can't be the best for you if I'm not the best for me. Like that's it. That's all. And so I think as a new mom, I love that I'm learning that, because I think when I first had Noah, one, there was a pandemic going on. So it was easy to be just all things Noah, everything Noah. But I had to really be intentional about, okay, don't lose Alexus now. Right. Be okay with still being Alexus. Right. And I think there was also a fear of judgment from other people. Like, because I feel like as a mom, you're supposed to be everywhere. You're supposed to be this. Yeah. And I had to realize, like, if that's what other people want, that's cool for them. But I know for Alexus to be healthy and balanced, you're going to have to kick it with your friends sometime. Exactly. You're going to have to, you and daddy going to have to leave and go on dates sometime. Yes. And I have this friend who is like, who doesn't like doing anything without their child. And I'm like, I get that if that's what you want to experience. But I know for me, I can't look at myself and think that I'm less, because I love an experience without, I love it. Don't get me wrong. I miss Noah all the time. But me and Jeremy love that us time, and like that time that we get to spend learning and relearning each other, or unlearning things that we grew out of, just alone. Because at the end of the day, like you said, this is who it's going to be. Noah going to get a wife or a husband, whatever. And he going to have his own life. And that's going to be his. But at the end of the day, it's going to be me and Jeremy rocking, making jokes till the wheels fall off. So trying to prioritize that, because I think we see it, especially growing up within our families, of how they did pour into us, no matter how unhealthy or healthy it was. A lot of the time was like, oh, I want to do this so that my child could this or all of this, and it was like, okay, now that we're gone, who are you, mama? Exactly. I want you to be human. I want you to find you. And I know for my mom, she's still figuring out who she is. She raised kids from 17 to I don't even know how long. Like, I can't remember how old my brother was, or how old she was when my brother graduated. And she's still raising us. She's still helping us. So I think
same here. That's my mom too. And, I wouldn't be here, without. I wouldn't be able to be as great as I am as a mom without my mom, because she's on the same kick,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, like, to see it's interesting for me to be a mom, and to see how my mom was as a mom. Like, as much as like I see how some of the things she did impacted me, and I have to unlearn it and I have to heal from it, I also look at her as like, girl, you a beast. Yeah. You are a beast. Like, as much as you went through to still be able to be this for me, like, I mean, I'm in complete awe of my mom, flaws and all. Like, I'm in awe of you. So actually, we're not going to end it on advice, because I just thought about this. Let's end on a message to our mamas. So something sweet, don't have to be long. And I'll start. Mama, I know you be listening, or you be having trouble listening sometimes. So I'll make sure you hear this or watch this. But I just want you to know, I love you so, so much. I love everything that you've done for us as a family, and that you continue to do for us. You did the best you possibly could with the resources that were available to you. And I see you continuing to try to be the best version of you. I value you. I love you. You're funny. And we love you. Me and Noah and Jeremy, we love you so much. And we hope that you continue to feel that from us.
That's really sweet.
I'm going to cry.
I'll say, Mom, Paula Session, call your name. You truly are the queen of my heart. And you always, as long as I live, you always will be that queen, and the only one that holds that space. I'm stronger. I'm who I am because of you, and your strength, and your example, and your perseverance. And I thank you for what you do on a daily for us, whether you are in person or not. Everything that you've said or done, good or bad, resonates with me, and it shapes who I am, shapes the mom that I am. And you help me to be able to be the best version of myself for our kids. So I just thank you, and I love you.
That's good.
That's awesome. Oh, Mom, Mary Charles, Charlie, Chuck. Girl, you already know what it is. But my mom you're amazing. Like, just watching you grow still to this day, still growing, still being brave enough to grow, through adversity. You never stop. You keep going. You keep learning yourself over and over again. And you're an awesome example to me, to my kids, and we absolutely adore you. And I hope your Mother's Day is spectacular.
Y'all, this was good. Yes. I'm like, I pulled that out the bag.
Girl,
That's gonna be good. That's gonna be good. But no, that really concludes the episode. I want to personally thank both of y'all for being here. Sharing your story as a mom. It means so much to me. Because like I said, I think for me, my journey, and I think one of my purposes of being on this earth is sharing my experience, but also getting other people together to share theirs so that we can learn and heal and grow as a community. So y'all are helping me fulfill my mission, and I truly appreciate that. Also, all the moms out there, y'all have a happy Mother's Day this year. You are great. You are gold. You are beautiful. Continue to evolve, continue to grow, and continue to be exactly who you were destined to be. We love y'all, and we are so grateful for y'all watching. Do y'all have anything else to add?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Of course.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and let that ride. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
It's so weird.